Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and we are going to go back to the 90s. Paul Simon's here. We are going to take a look at the band Soul Asylum. We're doing a career retrospective. We're looking at their catalog. It's going to be fun. Join us. Here we go.
Grant is changing the world one track at a time on Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we are talking about a band that I think deserves more love. This is one of those bands that gigantic in the 90s. A lot of those 90s bands don't get enough love. You know, back in the day, the 80s, they looked at the 80s and you thought, well, no one's going to be revisiting this. And then the 80s came around. I keep waiting for the 90s to come around. Maybe there was a 90s revival and I missed it. But this is one of those bands that made the 90s so great. And we're going to dive down in the rabbit hole and check them out. The band Paul and I are going to discuss is Soul Asylum. So I wanted to welcome Paul Simon here tonight. This was his idea. And you know what? In the warehouse, I'm totally game because we here in the warehouse talk about bands no one's talking about. And I swear to God, no one's talking Soul Asylum. And they deserve another look at. So this band was originated in Minneapolis, 1981. The band was initially formed by Dave Pirner, guitarist, singer, Dan Murphy, bassist Karl Mueller, and drummer Pat Morley. He was later replaced by a person who I admire because he has the same name, Grant Young. Original band name was Loud Fast Rules. And then they changed their name to Soul Asylum. So they had a lot of independent releases, 1984 to 88. They got signed to a major label, got signed to A&M, and the ball just started rolling. So like I said, I've got Paul here. We're going to look at the catalog. They've got a lot of records. And we're primarily looking at the studio albums. So there's 11. We're going to keep it moving fast. And we're just going to give reviews and tell you how we look at the catalog and what we would recommend. I ended up doing a ranking. I might list it if we have time. Let's just do it. Paul, let's just go.
All right. So
Start us out.
Loud Fast Rules. Dave Pirner was actually on drums before they brought Pat Morley in, and then he switched to guitar and while doing vocals. So they get signed by Twin Tone, who, anyone who knows the Minneapolis scene, you're talking Husker Du, you're talking the Replacements. Yeah. So 84, they come out with Say What You Will, Everything Can Happen, which became renamed Say What You Will, Carl Sold the Truck, upon its bigger reissue, I should say. Bob Mould produced it, and Bob Mould is, for a long time until, we'll catch up later, but until John Fields became the only person to produce more than one Soul Asylum album. So he ended up producing 2 plus a compilation. 3 plus a compilation, my bad. But Say What You Will, Everything Can Happen. Main song I took off that, we're talking sound-wise. You've got 4 guys. Grant became their drummer during Say What You Will, just to catch everybody up, because people are going to start rotating in a bit. Yeah. But for 10 years, they had a solid lineup with Dave, Dan, Karl, and Grant. So Stranger was the song that I've heard live a couple of times. They don't go as far back on this one as often. It's punk influence, definitely by their own description, with kind of that indie rock sound that was starting to happen in 84, 85, 86, 87. So that was their thing. So punk-influenced indie rock is what I call them. But they had jazz influence. Dave Pirner is a multi-instrumentalist. He plays piano, trumpet, saxophone, harmonica. So all that went into the writing, but they played on electric guitars. Mm-hmm. So I'm not as into as before I got into them. So when I started doing my backwards, I'll say when I got in. Right. But it's a good album, but yeah, even on the reissue, it sounds like that era.
It does 100%. It's a good start. You know, you blend of punk, rock, alternative. It laid the groundwork.
Yes.
For Soul Asylum. They had a lot of, I don't want to say growing up, but think about this. This is the
I don't think they disagree. Yeah.
This is the debut. Mm-hmm. these bands evolve, and as we're going to find, as they evolve, get signed to A&M, sharpen their skills, you're going to find out. But this is raw, this is aggressive, it's melodic, it is what it is. But still, what a great way to start out the career. I have no problem with it. So
Yep. 86, and they tour. That's the one thing I wanted to hit on. They tour relentlessly throughout this entire timeline with 2 hiatuses. They tour almost nonstop. So 86, they ended up releasing 3 things. Times Incinerator, which was a compilation of B-sides, outtakes, stuff like that. I don't have that. I haven't heard that.
yeah, I don't have that either.
Next album, Made to Be Broken, again produced by Bob Mould. Here's where you start getting songs that are still making set lists to this day. Never Really Been. You got that rockabilly alt country sound. Love the addition. Never Really Been is probably my top 10 Soul Asylum songs. Tied to the Tracks, Made to Be Broken, Ship of Fools. This is where they're starting to get their feet about them as far as my preferences. It's still before I got into them, but Made to Be Broken is a very, very good album. Yeah, you're starting to hear who they are with this, in my opinion.
Well put.
I'm not saying it weren't them before, but they're really getting distinct by now.
My key tracks, Tied to the Tracks, Never Been. And I think you put it there 100%. This record showed growth. Bob Mould does a great job. You still have that punk energy. The songwriting's getting better, though.
Yes.
They are honing in their craft, but they still show those eclectic influences that they have. But, with the improved songwriting, cohesive sound, what Bob Mould brings in production, it's all working. Because I think at this album, they started to develop more of a bigger following at this point, too, as well.
This is where they start picking up fans, and it's cult-like as far as the way the press was covering it in a good way. Like, people, underground. When they tour, people follow them.
And I want to say, though, a lot of these bands, they start out real strong and maybe they peak out early. I look at Soul Asylum kind of like the Sly Stone catalog. They kind of, believe me, these first 2 albums so far, we're still in the early period. They start out, but they're like this. They're like a bell curve. They go up and then they come back down. And I'm not saying anything about the later stuff yet. We're going to get to it. But so far, I like it when these bands just kind of and better.
And it's meteoric. I agree. It's the quality for, I didn't do a ranking, but you're going to hear me use more and more superlatives almost across the board for the next certain number of releases.
So anyway, we're still in 1986, so keep going.
They released 3 things in 86, though. That's to show how hardworking they are. 86, While You Were Out. Now they got Chris Osgood as their producer, and I'm going to start tapping you for some of these producers that I wasn't as familiar with, but I know that he had a pedigree of some kind. Might be worth looking into.
Osgood.
I'll know the later ones better, but he had some degree of pedigree. There was a reason they switched to him. It wasn't any problem with Bob Mould. They were on great terms. Matter of fact, I'll probably forget to mention it later, but Husker Du did a somewhat reunion to benefit after they did a cancer benefit for somebody, and we'll get to that part of the history in a bit.
All right.
So just to show that they were still part of that group.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But while you're out, you've got Closer to the Stars, which is going to be really important later for their history. The what I call the punk version. The original album version does not sound like the version they now play live, but it is an absolute staple. To see them and not hear them do that song now is pretty weird. Freaks and No Man's Land were my takeaways off While You Were Out.
That's exactly what I wrote down. Freaks and No Man's Land.
Yep.
Yep. I mean, it's energetic.
It's still strong, but those are the 3 highlights.
It's energetic. It has much more of a pop sensibility, but it's still hard-edged. Do you have the reissue of this by chance?
I do.
Okay.
In storage, but I do.
Okay. But does that provide, how are those bonus, I mean, is it worth getting for the bonus tracks?
I'd say, if you're a completionist, I'd say so. they're not knock you down, but I'm sort of a completionist, even though I'm going to push some of the greatest hits stuff at the end.
That's all right.
But it's definitely still good. It's a good part of their history. They're not throwaways.
There you go. You might want to check that out. All right, so now we're in 1988.
Here's where I come in.
Go ahead, Paul. Take it away.
A&M signs them. They release Hang Time. First song I ever heard from them was Cartoon. One of probably my top 5.
Yeah.
So it's worth noting that most songs are written by Dave. Dan Murphy co-wrote Cartoon. That is a Dan song. Soul Asylum fans will recognize there are certain songs that are Dan songs. Cartoon was written by Dan. The double vocals, that is the sound that I fell in love with them. Marionette, Little Too Clean, Beggars and Choosers, Endless Farewell. Marionette, I love this album. And where did I blow it with? Nope, I didn't blow it yet. Good. I'm checking my timeline real quick. I have timelines written out like the guy, like the meme. But I didn't miss the song I want to make sure I mentioned yet. But Hang Time, this is where I would usually start people because it's where I started. But man, I fell hard. I love this album. So it's not my number 1, but it's definitely top 4 for me.
Yeah, I wrote down key tracks for me were Cartoon, Sometime to Return.
Oh, God. Why I didn't write that down is beyond me. They played that in 2007 when I saw them in St. Louis, and I thought the whole place was going to explode. That is such a great
song.
staple when they play it.
This is a great record. Ladies and gentlemen, when we're talking Soul Asylum, this is where things are coming together. But a lot of times, these major labels, we're talking A&M. Think about Styx. They were on Wood and Nickel. Once they got on A&M, things started happening. Same thing with Soul Asylum. I don't know. What is it? They're pumping more money into them? I don't know. I think they're just honing their craft and getting better. This has a little bit more of a polished production. And the songwriting, I think, is improved. This is kind of like a transition album for me. So this is like the transition album for what came before and to the commercial success that we're going to see here, by 90, 92. I don't think 90 was a big commercial success.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. We're looking ahead. But when 92 comes, I think this is a good transition record. Highly recommended for anybody looking into the band. In fact, if you're just starting out and you haven't heard anything, I have no problem recommending this record.
I have to throw some love to the producers on this one because you got Lenny Kaye from Patti Smith, guitarist from Patti Smith, and Ed Stasium, who produced Talking Heads 77, Smithereens 11.
Yes.
That's where your polish is coming in. And you got to remember, these guys, up to even now, these guys are everyday, like what we used to call garage band type guys. So when they're getting some polish, it's going to be good. It's not going to be like they don't get too big for their britches, that kind of thing. You've got regular hardworking musicians with different influences giving them this very unique sound. It's one of the reasons they picked the name Soul Asylum is they just had all, and besides named after one of their songs, is because they had 4 very distinct influences coming into their sound. So when you get professional producers, nothing against Bob Mould, but when at all, ever.
No, we're not slamming Bob at all.
Not in the slightest. He found him as far as I'm concerned.
He's brilliant.
Yeah. So, but once they've got their sound and then you have Lenny Kaye and Ed Stasium come in, you can tell where the work went, is what I'm trying to say. That was what helped make Hang Time sound so good. The music was fantastic, but what made it sound good was it due in part, no small part, to those 2 producers. Got to give the love there.
All right. Excellent. Yeah. All right. We're on to a 1990. Go ahead, Paul.
I want to throw a 1-sentence shout out to 1989's EP, Clam Dip and Other Delights. It's a joke on Whipped Cream and Other Delights, Herb Alpert, A&M, and then the cover. And that's why I wanted to mention it. The cover was actually Karl Mueller covered in like mayonnaise, shaving cream. Horrible, but it was a riff on that. They did a song on Clam Dip called P9, which was, this is very indicative of who Soul Asylum are as a band. P9 was to raise money for the Hormel canned goods workers who were on strike in Austin, Minnesota. That is very Soul Asylum. So that's why I want to throw that in before we moved on to 1990 and The Horse They Rode In On, produced by Steve Jordan, current drummer, I believe, for the Stones. Correct me where I'm wrong.
I do believe so. Not really known as a producer.
Right.
I do think he's done some production jobs, though, because I remember, I don't know what show it was, but something in the past, someone mentioned Steve Jordan as the producer. So he's dabbled in it.
And he'll be
Here he
producing
is, 1990. He's here.
And in case I forget to mention it, their new album coming in a couple weeks, slowly but surely, as in airplane Shirley, is produced. They're going back to Steve Jordan. I just found that out an hour ago.
Well, that sounds good.
Go figure. But anyway, okay. So, and The Horse They Rode In On. I love. You got Spinnin', Bitter Pill, Veil of Tears, Gullible's Travels, another dance song. Easy Street, the standout. We Three, one of my favorite songs they ever recorded. All the King's Friends. I love this album, but it is a little inconsistent. I'm not saying quality. It's a little bit more them, so there's a little bit more influence involved, and it didn't sell as well. And they did get dropped by A&M.
I mean, they still hadn't found commercial success yet. They're getting closer.
They're touring with Who's Purdue, Alternative Nation. They're hitting that side of MTV, but the Big E hadn't happened, and they're just a hard-working band.
They got dropped by A&M. Now, all right, we're talking that era. Think about this. This is that A&M era where Matthew Sweet got dropped by A&M.
Exactly.
Earth came out in 89. Hang Time came out in 88. The Horse was, that's 1990. Girlfriend was recorded in, I think, 89, 90, and he got dropped.
Yeah.
Was the reason that they got dropped during all this hoopla at A&M where they changed management?
It was that time frame, so I would not discount that at all. And again, and The Horse They Rode In On, the fans love, but to save their face, would A&M say? Who knows? I'm not that person. I loved the album. I didn't love it as much as Hang Time, but I loved it. But it is worth noting that Dave started developing tinnitus, so he kind of fell into a bit of a funk. And he was worried he wouldn't be able to hear music anymore. And he channeled all that into a song that was a metaphor for his depression called Runaway Train. They pick up acoustics for the first time. They played acoustic to write the songs as well as piano and all that, but as far as being featured on an album. This is how, and two articles I found looking over old interviews phrased it as such, so this is not my words. From what I found doing my research in the archives, when Nirvana got signed, all the record companies started like, who's going to be the next big thing? Who can we grab that's freed up from contract, available, has a following, has a proven catalog? Columbia finds Soul Asylum. So that's how Grave Dancers Union, which takes us into where things are about to get big.
So I have a question.
Shoot.
Grave Dancers Union, though, was not recorded for A&M, correct? It was
It was recorded for Columbia. A couple of the songs were being worked on before Columbia signed them. They didn't write that album per se, like, and now that they were still working. They were still doing their thing. Like I said, Dave was going through some stuff, but they were still hanging tight. But then Columbia sweeps in and says, we want you. And boom, Grave Dancers Union. Now, track-wise, we could be here all night, but...
Well, it's a perfect record.
Somebody to Shove, Black Gold, and what's funny is what I'd forgotten was that George Wendt was in the video for Black Gold. I'd forgotten all about that. Runaway Train, Tony K. Yeah. Tony K directed the video, which we'll get to in a second.
Tony K?
Tony K, who directed American History X.
Oh, I thought you were talking Tony K of Yes.
No.
Well, now I'm disappointed.
Sorry. Well, okay. Not that I picked up on in my reading. Okay, I'm like, holy crap. So, April Fool, 99%. Get on out. I mean, what an album.
Well, Yeah, my key tracks that I wrote on here, we'll keep it moving, but Runaway Train, Somebody to Shove, and Black Gold, I think are the highlights. But the whole
April Fool's, they closed with it in, I
April
can't remember what year. I've
Fools.
seen them 9 times, but whatever year I saw them, they closed April Fool, the house came down.
But the
So,
thing is with this record, 1992, it went triple platinum. This was a huge, huge record. This totally took Soul Asylum to another level.
and with it came some stuff. Michael Beinhorn, how do I pronounce that? He's famous. Soundgarden, Super Unknown, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Mother's Milk. Okay, so he's known for being, I mean, this is the guy who co-wrote and produced Rocket from Herbie Hancock. So he has got tons of credibility for being a ball buster, very anal retentive. Bands love him. However, he's very hard on them and he's very meticulous. I'm making sure I'm getting my facts right. You know me and being on the level. This is where on half the album, Grant Young isn't playing what Michael wants out of the band. So they bring in Sterling Campbell during the sessions, and it was Runaway Train specifically. Mm-hmm. And it turned into a thing where Sterling Campbell is credited for percussion for half the album, but Grant wasn't producing what Michael and the band wanted for the band. To this day, and remember, regular guys, this is not attitude, this is not high-mindedness, this is how do we do this, how do we get this? So they struggled with it, and feelings were hurt on all sides, and Grant continued to tour with and play with the band until 94, but after that, there was an exit. I don't say quit, fired, I have nothing to do with that, but a lot of feelings were hurt on all sides, so Grant exits the band in 94. Now, before we jump ahead time-wise, what I want to note was Tony Kaye directed that video. They said, the record company said, put the band in there for a chorus, and the band's like, we're doing what Tony says, and Tony's like, nope, I want to be about this and the whole Runaways and making it localized for whatever area the video was being played in and all that. And there were a lot of stories, some very, very, very good, and some where it's like people who ran away from situations that weren't all that great. So it was kind of a mixed bag. You and I have talked plenty, like Sister Christian from Night Ranger, High Enough from Damn Yankees.
Yep.
Was Runaway Train a blessing or a curse? I've always leaned into blessing when we've had these conversations. This is the one time I will say it's a 50-50 split, in my opinion, because some diehard fans felt Grant leaving the band affected their credibility. Their sound changed from this album forward. And on the other hand, much broader audience, they're still writing. Their next albums that we're going to be talking about are amazing, but there was a shift. There was a paradigm shift with Grave Dancers Union. So, and like I said, this wasn't egos at all. It was, how do we put out what we're trying to put out? Dave said in an interview I read that he just related to Sterling's playing of their music better. But this is a 10-year friendship, 10-year working relationship, longer friendship. So it was bumpy and it was rough for the band on all sides.
Things change. You've got different producers, you get different studios, technology changes. I've never really heard.
They had nice things to say. So
I mean, you could say the drummer changing it out would change the sound, but guitar players, but drums are just drums. No, I don't want to sound negative. Maybe it might have a different feel, but
I wasn't there.
You know what I'm trying to say.
I know what you're saying, but they felt they were a better musical fit by the time they got around to 95 for Let Your Dim Light Shine, which before we get there,
Yeah.
I just want to point out a couple of things that happened in that 92, 93, 94 period.
Right.
Is 92, I believe I got the year right, Clinton's inauguration, that they played that because Chelsea specifically asked for them. 93 was their Unplugged set. Unbelievable. You got Somebody to Shove with strings. Awesome arrangement. Lulu came out and they did To Sir With Love, which they'd been playing as a cover for 10 plus years at that point.
I'm good with that.
The duet with them was mind-blowingly cool. 94, they became friends with Kevin Smith. They did Can't Even Tell. They did the song for the Clerks soundtrack, and Kevin Smith directed the music video for it. So big influence because Dave would go on to score Chasing Amy and use We Three for Chasing Amy in 97. So big time for them and hard to deal with. So these are regular guys. But that being said, that's my Grave Dancers Union into 95 spiel.
But you did mention, like I said, Runaway Train, Somebody to Shove, Black Gold, great stuff. I think, this blended alternative rock, introspective lyrics, accessible melodies. This is where everything came together to a perfect, what they'd done in the past, the maturity, the experiences, the touring, it all comes together here to make, this is a perfect record. It's a perfect record. So,
and it's not my favorite of theirs, but it's my second.
I get it, but I'll give you my ranking at the end if we have time. So then you'll just see where I look at all of it, but that's cool. All right, go ahead. Next record.
95, Let Your Dim Light Shine. Butch Vig producing. Oh,
love Butch.
Great album. So Sterling is an official.
Sounds like this is your favorite.
It's not.
Oh my God. Okay.
But I love this as a follow-up to Grave Dancers Union. I really love this. You got Misery, Just Like Anyone, Promises Broken, Bitter Sweetheart, which is an absolute live staple, String of Pearls. Love this album. It's a worthy successor to Grave Dancers Union. It didn't do as well, but when you're at the top, you're gonna, it's still ranked. It's still charted.
Bands that hit that peak.
Yes.
Very few bands can.
In my opinion, it's not a quality issue at all. I love this.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to go down. Not saying that this is a worse.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, worthy successor, definitely. This is
worthy successor.
After someone picks up Grave Dancers Union, they need to pick up Let Your Dim Light Shine.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, great touches there. Misery gets used for Clerks 2. I'm skipping a ton of soundtrack songs. Twister, The Craft. Right. Yeah.
These guys were in demand at this time. They did a lot of extracurriculars. Let's say that.
Yep. Oh, Golden Smog. I forgot that completely. In 88, Dan Murphy joined up with a couple members of the Jayhawks. For a while, they brought in Jeff Tweedy from Wilco, someone from the Replacements, I can't remember who, and someone from Run Westy Run, and did their own little alt country fusion type of, and it started off as a joke, and then whenever they got burned out from doing what they're doing, they all got together and did gigs as Golden Smog. So yeah, so they're constantly doing music even when they're taking breaks.
Well, I did want to say Misery, Just Like Anyone, are the tracks that I dig off of this. But I mean, they had the success. This still, you thought this is still more polished than the previous record. But it continued with hits, radio friendly. It was perfect for the time.
Dave felt a little frustrated with this one because he started feeling that they were becoming formulaic. Not a slam on the album. He loved the album, but he had to work harder to not sound like he didn't want to sound.
The record company wants more of what came before.
And I'm sure that's somewhere in there, and they're not going to say it. I'm sure that's in there.
I'm sure it's in there. But anyway, it's a fine record. I have nothing negative to say about it. Yep. Great follow-up. You can never attain that high level that you achieved at your peak. Very few can do that. Very few, and I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. So we do that. That's 95.
Yep.
Now we're into 98, Candy from a Stranger.
Yep. Chris Kimsey, producer. Stones, Zeppelin 3, engineering. Frampton Comes Alive.
Great producer engineer.
Yeah. So what's funny about Candy from a Stranger is they actually put together an album called Creatures of Habit, produced by Matt. I can't even read my own handwriting at that point. Matt Hyde. Columbia sent it back and said, no. Do our album. Candy from a Stranger became that album.
Okay.
Standout tracks, I Will Still Be Laughing was the single.
Write that down.
Close is another live staple. The fans always go crazy when they play it live. Losing It, The Game. What else? I think that
Blood
was
into
it.
Wine.
Yep.
Great track. Holy crap. I mean, think about it. When this came out, though, we're talking 98.
Yeah.
The musical landscape's changing by this time.
That's right.
Don't forget, Kurt Cobain passed away in 94.
Yep.
And that had a lot to do with the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Almost, I hate to say it, but maybe not. I'm not saying that these guys are grunge, but Kurt Cobain dying kind of was like
rock took a hit. Rock took a hit.
Mm-hmm.
Pop and whatever was most popular, this stuff was starting to fade. So it's not anything to do with the album. It's simply this particular kind of rock is starting to not be the number one thing.
The songwriting on this record, though, Paul, is just as good as what came before.
It is.
But we're just having that decline. We talked about the bell curve. They're going up, hit that peak, and you got to come back down. And this is a slow ride coming down, but you do. And there's really nothing wrong with this record at all.
Nope.
I mean, still have that grunge alternative rock thing, but things are changing. Things are changing.
Yeah, the soundscape is changing. Absolutely.
Now I do want to
quits.
Now, did they do anything between Candy from a Stranger and Silver Lining? Because we have a big break in time.
Things were released, and this is worth noting too. I don't know what happened with Columbia, but that was their last album with Columbia, not counting. And I didn't write down who released what.
No, that's cool.
Time period. We've got in 2000, Black Gold Best Of gets released, which I highly recommend to the new fan as far as greatest hits goes, is Black Gold Best Of. That is a fantastic greatest hits compilation. I believe that's the first time that the acoustic version of Closer to the Stars is released. Okay. So it's got a couple other must-have tracks in there too. It's a great, well-rounded thing. 2004, they released Live After the Flood, a live show from 1997 that they did as a benefit for Grand Forks High School got flooded out. So they asked the band to come in and do their prom. Two schools got flooded out. So they did their prom in 97. They released that in 04. They're working on Silver Lining, but this is where things really get rough.
So let me ask you this before we hit it.
Yeah.
They were on Columbia. They did the final record. What I can't remember for the life of me. What was the next label they were on?
Legacy.
That's like Epic.
Right.
So, okay. So it just seems weird that they'd be signed.
I couldn't find anything information-wise on, I don't know if this fulfilled their Columbia contract or if, I have no idea, but.
That's just weird, but whatever. Hey, if anybody knows about this in the comments, please let us know down below. Because we do not know everything. We're just two guys talking music, so we don't know.
I think I forgot to say this in the beginning. I'm more than a casual fan. I'm less than a diehard fan. I don't know everything about them. I just love what I love from them. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like we said before, this is a band that needs more love. And really, Paul and I doing this show, it's a lot about discovering it and the task, or, we have an assignment. Go out, study the catalog, come back, let everyone know how we look at it. And even though I was familiar with the catalog, not all of these records I was familiar with. So it's a great exercise. And really, anybody in the comments that want to comment on anything, please, if we're full of crap, tell us we're full of crap, but it's all in good fun and it's all about talking music. So
Yeah, and I'm stating preference. Like I said, Hang Time was my first. Hang Time's got that special place in my heart, like Presto
Right.
from Rush was where I came in. But I can't argue that Grave Dancers Union is a more epic album.
Right. Right.
So yeah. So, but the big thing that really affected them was on June 17th of 2005, halfway through the recording of Silver Lining, Karl Mueller died of esophageal cancer.
Jesus.
So that hit them, and at least half that album is his playing. So that is a Karl album. The album's dedicated to him, and they, at his insistence and their insistence, they had no plans to stop. Now Sterling had quit after Candy from a Stranger, or left the band. Lest I get that wrong.
We
Sterling
could be wrong, but
right. Sterling departed the band after Candy from a Stranger. Who do they bring in on drums? Michael Bland, Minneapolis, new power generation, the big guy.
wow. And you just think about that. Wow, come on. That's a great drummer. I'll just leave it at that.
Absolutely, he is.
My God.
He is now quintessential Soul Asylum. Matter of fact, that's him in the middle there. My friend
There he
Jason and I
is.
did Soul Asylum in 2015. That's Michael in the middle. So, but yeah, it's
picture.
Michael definitely brought a lot to them. I mean, not that Sterling didn't or Grant didn't, but he is so, not from 2005 to present, he is their drummer, and what a great fit. What a great fit. And then they bring in the producer for Silver Lining was John Fields and Steve Hodge, and they would start
John
working with John
Fields.
Fields on everything. So in case I forget to mention it, he will produce everything from Silver Lining forward until this brand new one coming out in 2024 with Steve Jordan. So everything from here on out is John Fields. But they bring in as bass. John plays a little bit of it. Tommy Stinson from The Replacements becomes their bassist.
Yeah.
They were friends with them. They fit all that. Now, no one will ever replace Karl. That's just simply a given. Now, that being said, like I said, they're friends with them. They know them. It's a good fit. I saw him live many times with Tommy, and man, that was great. So, talk about bringing in. So, Silver Lining,
Yeah.
my number one Soul Asylum album by far.
Oh my goodness.
It's not
Look
even
at you.
close. It's not, for me personally. This is a preference. I'm not saying it's better or worse than blah, blah, blah. I'm saying for me, this was the album. I saw the tour 3 or 4 times. They toured for years on this. There is not a bad song. There's not a bad note on this album for me. Stand Up and Be Strong, the single, got picked up by, I can't remember what sport it was. I'm not a sports guy, but got picked up by somebody. ESPN grabbed it for something. Lately, great rockabilly.
I wrote
alt
that
country,
down. Yeah.
Crazy Mixed Up World, fantastic. Also a little bit of blues, a little bit of alt country, a little bit of pop. All Is Well, that was a show opener a couple of times. Bus Named Desire, show closer a couple of times. There's your punk roots. You want your punk roots in your Soul Asylum? Bus Named Desire. What You Need has that that classic Dave and Dan groove. And what I haven't talked enough about is David and Dan together are really a force. They really are. Because the double vocals, and when Dan co-writes or co-wrote, Standing Water, another live staple. Success Is Not So Sweet, The Great Exaggerator. Oxygen, my all-time favorite Soul Asylum song. It is now. I don't think it's left the live set since Silver Lining. Not that I remember. Good For You and Slowly Rising. This is my perfect album of theirs. Preference. But this is such a great album.
Great record. Not many people know about it because you know what? By this time in the career,
Yeah.
no one cared. I'm not saying I didn't care, but
Right. They toured on it for 4 years.
Right.
So sometimes off and on,
but like you, Paul, I Stand Up and Be Strong. Lately, 2 great tracks. But I think they, even though Karl passed away, I think they produced a great record.
yes, they
Very
did.
reflective, very mature sounding. And the other thing is, is that this record received a lot of good reviews when it came out. It's like a return to form, so to speak. But this is a more mature Soul Asylum.
Yeah. This is the one I steer as many people to as possible. This is, I mean, there's other gateway albums and all that, but the one that is an absolute must own. I'm not even saying make it your first, but the must own at the end of the day for me is Silver Lining.
You got to have it in the catalog. You've got to have it in the archive.
Have to.
All right.
Yeah, I can recommend greatest hits compilations all day, but Silver Lining from start to finish, that's my big one. So.
All right. So after that, there was a break, 2006 to 2012.
Well, they toured for 4 years.
All right. So we're toured on one record.
Yeah.
God, it must have really just took forever for that record to do anything.
Well, and plus Tommy was part of Guns N' Roses, you got to remember too. So they had to hurry up and wait, which we'll get to that one shortly. But it was like, okay, we'll do festivals here. Now we'll do this there. Or we'll do a couple gigs, Dan will go off with Golden Smog or whatever. Soundtrack work, charity work, just they had life going on in this period.
Right.
But then 2012.
Delayed reaction.
All
right, take us away.
This is the last one as far as when we're in the newer sound that I really, really fell for. Now, I'm not saying the quality changed. I'm saying this was the last album I went to absolutely crazy for when it came out. You had John Fields producing again, Gravity, The Streets, The Juice. God, what else? I lost my my notes on the songs, but just a really, really good album. It's also Dan's last album, and I told you I'm a sucker for that Dave and Dan sound, and they're still putting out good stuff to this day, but Dan retired, and the way he put it, he posted on endofthesoulasylum.net, he posted a very, thank the guys, thank everybody involved, thank the fans, and retired. And he said, look, I think it takes two things to be in this industry, naivety and swagger, and I have lost both. So,
good quote.
Yeah. Worth noting, because I will forget when we get to the end, he has, as of last year, a new project called The Scarlet Goodbye. Definitely check them out. They're they're small at this point. They're modest, but good stuff. I've only heard a couple songs from it, but good stuff.
All right, check them out.
Yep. So
but delayed reaction, I want to say key tracks from Gravity, The Streets. It's a bit more of a raw record than what came before. But they're still energetic. There's still when I listen to it, I'm on board. There's nothing here that goes, oh, I haven't gotten that feel where going, oh, well, this isn't not really sold on this. But okay. So they do take some modern influence, they mix it with the classic rock. But the thing is, people during this time welcome this record because it sounded more like their roots.
Yes.
And I get that.
I found the ones I was missing. Take Manhattan and Let's All Kill Each Other. That song was released to the fans 3 years before the album came out, 2.5 years. I remember that. So, but Let's All Kill Each Other could have been on While You Were Out. So they're definitely expanding, their musical tool belt in that. So, and I know that sometime around that period is when David moved to New Orleans, so he had that influence on the music too. So they're still growing musically at this point.
Right.
So good stuff. So this is where I'm going to start to actually need note cards to keep track of who's in the band, because
lots of lineup changes.
Lots of lineup changes here. So Winston Roy joins. Tommy left, so there's bass. For Change of Fortune, guitar-wise, you've got Justin Charbonneau comes in for one album. And that's who's in the picture with me and Jason and those guys. Change of Fortune, really good album. I think the last time I saw them live was that tour, but I'd seen them in 2015 before the album came out. I think that last time I met them. But Change of Fortune, you got John Fields producing again. It was Justin's only album with them. The big single, and they're not a singles band. That was the other thing I forgot to throw in way earlier, is that they have never wanted to be a singles band. They're AOR, they're album-oriented rock.
I
But
agree.
the record companies demanded singles. Supersonic was the big song off this one. Also, Doomsday, Ladies Man, Change of Fortune were the other ones I put on here to note. But just definitely a good album. But I think my tastes were starting to change by then. So that's nothing on the songwriting or the production or them. I simply wasn't as into them as I was. And I think to a degree, it was probably my closed mind because I was so stuck. They stopped playing the Dan songs for a bit. And there was even a 2-year period where Dave wouldn't play Runaway Train and then came around and realized, okay, I'm doing this for the fans, not me, and all that. So I think I kind of did the same thing with my fandom. Was I was so into that Dave Dan sound that it was really jarring for me to make that transition and give it a fair enough shake.
So once Dan left, it totally changed the whole sound of the band.
It did.
It was just a different animal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dan brought so much to their sound, because the dual vocals. I mean, Dave's the lead singer, but Dan did he's credited as background vocals, but for so many of these classics, Easy Street, Marionette, Sometime to Return, Cartoon was his song. They're co-vocals.
He's John Bon Jovi's Richie Sambora.
I was Chris DeGarmo to Jeff Tate.
Yeah.
It really was that big a change or shift when he left the band. It really was. Now, the guys did a great job of keep working, but
Well, you got to put food on the table.
Yep, but it was a shift.
Yeah.
So, which brings us to, I don't know if you had anything more to throw on that.
Well, I wrote down off Change of Fortune. I wrote Supersonic, When I See You. Again, we're still mixing those rock pop influences. They still sound the same, but I think this band's always evolving. With Dan not in the band, of course they're going to evolve. But the thing is, they never give up and they just keep doing what they do. When I look at the album cover, Change of Fortune, I mean, a lot of these records, like you go back and you go, what record was that? I remember back in the day, we're talking 2016. This didn't do anything. I don't remember this getting any promotion
No.
or anything. It kind of came out and here it is. And that's not taking anything away from the music.
No, but this isn't the kind of music that is a big seller anymore.
Exactly.
It's not having that 90s
But
momentum.
they're still plugging away, though.
They're the consummate working band.
Exactly.
That's what I love about them. They're constantly touring.
Yep.
So 2020.
We go from 2016 to 2020, which is, if you notice, ladies and gentlemen, these albums, it's like a 4-year in between each one.
So Justin leaves, and I don't know anything. I couldn't find anything about that. Ryan Smith, much younger guitarist, is brought in. There is a rejuvenation with him. There is a noticeable, and I just think there's more energy behind Hurry Up and Wait than there is behind Change of Fortune. It's not a quality thing necessarily, but they seem a little bit revived. He's some young blood. So,
And a lot of times, Paul, you get something like that in the band, some new blood, and you get all worked up, you get jazzed, and then you put out a great record.
yeah.
You know?
And Hurry Up and
These
Wait.
guys have played together for years for the most part.
we're well into the decades at this point, so exactly.
Right.
So yeah, Dead Letter, If I Told You, were the two
Landmines.
Landmines.
Dang. There's some great stuff on here.
Now 2020, let's remember what happened in 2020. So the pandemic hits.
Yeah, how could we forget?
Here-
How could I forget that?
Because we're very involved in what we're talking about. But
Exactly.
what's very noteworthy about Soul Asylum during this period, go on YouTube, find them. If you were into the band, you already know what I'm talking about. Ryan and Dave did acoustic sets of damn near everything. It was fantastic. Sometime to Return, We Three, Closer to the Stars. They were pulling out I mean, they were pulling out a lot of older tracks, at least not this new, but they were also still writing.
Right.
So not only were they doing stuff off Hurry Up and Wait, but they went back through the entire catalog and did acoustic versions, like 3-song sets. Okay, we'll see you next week. That is one of my fondest personal memories from the lockdown time, was Dave and Ryan doing their lockdown sets. They are fantastic. So they were really there for the fans. Again, hard working band.
Yeah. And I don't know what the status is of the band. Are they still together? Are they still touring?
Yeah. New song just came out. Trial by Fire got released a week and a half ago. High Road, by the time this airs, will be out. The lyric video comes out tomorrow from the day we're taping. So it'll come August 2nd. High Road, the lyric video premieres. Second song released, off of Slowly But Surely. I don't have an album release date yet, but again, Steve Jordan is producing it. They start touring in late September to back the album. So no, they're still together, still out there. Winston did leave, and the current lineup is Dave, Michael's still on drums, Ryan Smith on guitar, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Jeremy Tapero is their bass player.
All right.
So that is the current lineup for Soul Asylum. And they're still out there, they're still jamming, and I will definitely be catching. I'm not sure where I'll catch the tour, but I'm definitely going.
If you've got someone who doesn't know Soul Asylum and they're just getting into the band, which album should they start out with?
My autographed picture of Dave with my ticket stub.
Of course you've got that.
Absolutely.
What would you recommend?
Okay, the extremely subjective pick would be Hang Time, because that was that sweet spot for me of your punk roots, your outside influences, some polish, but still raw. Or, if you want to look at greatest hits compilations, I really think Black Gold from 2000 is a great one. And they did release the twin tone stuff got a re-release with some polish on it. And the A&M stuff got released as Welcome to the Minority, which was Hang Time and The Horse They Rode In On. So you could even get that as a compilation of both albums as a re-release. So
I've just got it individually.
Yeah. So, I mean, I really wouldn't start with Grave Dancers. I mean, most people know Grave Dancers Union, and that's fine. It's a 10 out of 10 album. But Hang Time's a great place to start. Horse They Rode In On's a great place to start. Make sure your collection has Grave Dancers Union, Let Your Dim Light Shine, and Silver Lining.
All right, this is my ranking just for giggles.
Yep.
Though you don't have to rank them. This is just fun. I thought,
yeah,
I'm not going to go into the show, but I'm going to go into. I might as well give you my ranking for the hell of it.
Yeah.
So my number 10, and I'm not going to go. I mean, my number 12.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go into detail. I'm just going to. I'm going to go. Candy from a Stranger from 1998. Hurry Up and Wait from 2020. Change of Fortunes, my number 10 from 2016. Number 9, I'm going to go with Delayed Reaction from 2012. Number 8, Say What You Will, Clarence. Carl Sold the Truck, 1984. Number 7, I'm going to go Silver Lining. Number 6, The Horse They Rode In On. Number 5, While You Were Out from 1986. Number 4, Made to Be Broken from 86. Hang Time's my number 3 from 1988. Number 2, Let Your Dim Light Shine from 95. And I'm going to go with Grave Dancers Union from 1992. And the fact that I'm going to go with Grave Dancers Union, whether, this isn't Paul's favorite, but most commercially successful. This is when people look at Soul Asylum. This is what I think people think Soul Asylum is.
Somebody to Show is an absolute Grammy. 100% song. It won a Grammy. Exactly.
Won a Grammy. Runaway Train. Yeah.
That Meatloaf accepted for them.
It was the breakthrough.
Yeah.
And
it's a 10 out of 10 album.
Yeah. And you can get it cheap. If you want physical media, you can find it all day. It sold a lot of records. There's a lot of copies out there. Now, I don't know anything about streaming. You could stream it. That's more power to you. but I'm a physical media guy, and I know if you go look in the bins, the cheapy bins, if you're around anything like that, they're out there. So that's my ranking. It's just fun. I might as well rank the damn things while I'm doing it. So, well, Paul, do you have anything else to add? I think we've done it. Hopefully you can get turned on to some Soul Asylum. Check it out. Let us know in the comments if you haven't heard anything. If you have heard them, we want to hear from you as well. Leave a comment.
Have you seen them live? What tour did you see? I said I've seen them 9 times. So yeah, I probably saw you at a show.
Yeah. So while Paul's here, Paul is on Rush Fans. Is there anything coming up? I'm going to try to get this show up fairly soon. So, is there anything coming up? It'll be up by next week. Is there anything coming out? Anything you want to mention?
Main thing with me is still, you can find me over Rush Fans. You can find all our back catalog stuff, plenty there. So you can find me on YouTube at Kilroy here, and you can find every show I've been on, mostly yours and Rush Fans and a couple other channels.
There you go. You're a damn professional, Paul. I appreciate everything you do coming on the show, and it's always fun to talk music with you.
Same.
And, you can agree with me 100%. It's all about turning people on. That's all we care about. But I want to say this. If you like the content, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe, buy some merch. I've got a link down below. Get yourself a shirt. That barcode works. So when Paul goes out public, he goes, well, check out Grant's Rock Warehouse. Then people could go, well, how do I find it? Well, take your phone, take a picture of that barcode. It does work. Look at me. I'm a marketing madman. But please subscribe. Check it out. There, Rush Fans mug. There you go. More great stuff coming on the warehouse. But based on that, I think we covered it. I don't have anything more to add.
Check out the new album when it comes out. Check out Golden Swan. Check out Scarlet Goodbye. Dan Murphy's thing. Great stuff.
There you go. Let us know what you think. All right, everybody. Have a good week, good weekend whenever this comes out, and keep it clean, keep it real. All right, Paul, we'll see you on the next one.
Aloha.